Ruckus. Thanks for joining. Please like, subscribe, and share. 10-8. Well. How's everybody doing? I have got someone that I've recently met. We haven't even talked that much, it's cool that she's agreed to come on live with me because we really don't know each other. So this would be a cool dynamic. You guys, most of you know Ivy Rose. Do you know most of the folks?
I think so. I'm trying to get them pulled up on my phone so I can see the chat, but I at least if I haven't talked to people, I at least know their names, most of them.
Let me see. There we go. Can you see that? Is that big enough for you to see the chat
Yes.
that I just put on the screen? Okay. I don't know if she's here. This is from earlier. Mind a Monster stopped in, though. 63 clocks. And Melissa. Got died. Is it Die DZ? What do you think?
That's the only way I don't know. Died is I think died is the only way I would pronounce it.
Hi, Angela. Miranda Lee. Let me see. We got Jill, as always. How
I
are you,
actually
Jill?
don't know a lot of these names, which I'm not used to.
Oh, well, that's cool then.
So.
They're all very nice. We've got Olivia. You know Jinx, right?
Yes.
Who doesn't know Jinx? Jinx is awesome. Let me see here. We've got James Powell. Love to hunt. How are you? I see what this one is. This is a new one to me. Total Jag 1, I guess. Total Jag.
I guess you do kind of develop a kind of a random skill of pronouncing names.
Jody Lynn, hi, how are you, sweetheart? Support with Steffa, what's going on?
I know Steffa.
Steffa in the house. We got Kyra D. Bruin. Lee and Susan Trainer. This is great. Thought I was wrong, just mistaken. Hello. Brandon, how are you, sir? Brandon, if you don't see somebody put up the link for your channel, do some shameless plugging, my brother. Throw it right in the chat. Any of you guys that are creators, I support every one of you. So if you don't see people putting, the mods are usually pretty good. If they don't put your channel in there, throw your link up there, please. Now, this name always gets me. It's so funny. Solar Chef Steph. I don't know why that tongue ties me. Kristen, behind the crime door. How are you, my dear? I'm just going to go with Martin. Bri for Wanny.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that one.
Yeah, I'll just go with Martin. Julian Friend. Mustang. Did you get a chance, Ivy, to see that filing that came out today from Judge Gull?
Yes, and I read the stuff that with words that I know, and I skimmed the other part.
Okay, yeah, that's what I do as well. I'm going to put that up here in a minute so we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a few things I found interesting about it.
Yeah. What's up, Coach Kev? It's all interesting to me. Hey, Carol. If you spend enough time in the courthouse, you get to see the inner workings, and you can tell who's writing what without knowing who wrote it.
Well, I'm kind of weird, and I annoy myself a lot doing it. But if I'm listening or talking to somebody, say who's pro prosecution, I always am like, well, what about this? They did this. They did this. So then it sounds like I'm pro defense. But then if I'm talking to a pro defense person, then I'm always the opposite, and it sounds like I'm a pro prosecution. So I think I just question everybody.
There's nothing wrong with that. I think this person just made this name up just for me. Otsy Fotsy. How are you, Otsy? Got Night Shadow. Now, while I'm going through these, I've got it loaded up in the back, so I'll bring that up and we can go over it a little bit. Hey, Deb, Two
Definitely
Crime
giving out
Notebook.
my secrets.
What secrets?
She says I read the documents before they were written.
Oh, hi, Lakeside. Yeah, there's a lot in that document, and you got to read between the lines as well. I'm sure you picked that out. Is that you,
The part
Santa? What's up, Sleuth?
the part that got me the most was um the where they were arguing about the Franks and why it should be sealed. And they
Hmm.
said because Abby and Libby's name was in it. Like that's not. I've heard so many people argue that it's because witness not well yeah witness names and then the people they accused, but none of that was in there. It was just their names and then like some vague statement about details, which I don't necessarily agree with that part.
I think she was talking about the supporting document, that 136 page. I think
Yeah,
I think that's what they were. We'll go through it. We'll take a look at it. Um, but they're saying that it was not redacted. That's why they're kicking it out. Which I don't know.
but the
La
state
la hello.
has, in fact, the attorney, what is her name, Kara Weineke, who is the she did the one by herself, and then she's one of the three on the other one. On her Twitter, she posted a little excerpt that said that in one of the prosecution's filings, they named Abby and Libby. So like you can't argue that if the prosecution isn't redacting their names.
Hmm. I call her Kiera. It's Kyra. I'm sorry, Kyra. But yeah, so I didn't really understand that. Maybe we can catch it when we look at it here in a second. Let me just make sure
Oh,
that I
that's a
didn't
cute
miss
dog,
anybody.
Miranda.
I love dogs.
I'm too much like dogs.
Yeah.
I'd
Hello, this
much
account.
rather be around them.
Yeah, I have two Boston Terriers, and my son's works for the sheriff's office, and he's off doing things right now. So he has a German Shepherd. So we have our grand dog as well for a week.
That's nice. Dogs know their grandparents. I don't know how else to say that, but my
Yeah,
dog is obsessed with my mom. She like somehow knows it's my mom.
yeah. Her name's Maggie, and she's well trained. His roommate was a canine officer for a while, so she's trained in German. She's really cool, but she's up my wife's butt. Anywhere my wife goes, she lays down in front of the bathroom door. If she's in the shower, it's crazy. Hey,
I had
Don, how are you,
never been
sir?
around a German Shepherd, and the people who live across the street from me have a bunch, and I see them in their yard. But one day, one of them got out and kind of walked up to me, and I didn't realize how big they can get. It was huge.
They're imposing. Hi, Charlotte. All
Oh,
right.
Finn.
Necessary Evil, how are you? All right. Well, let's just kick this off a little bit because, like I said, we really haven't talked much at all, Ivy, have we?
No, it's funny. We right before we got on, I mentioned the parasocial. I think that's what it is, parasocial relationships.
Hmm.
And I guess I kind of have one with you, or I think it would be flipped. Maybe I forget which person in the dynamic has it, the like content creator or the other person. But I feel like I know you more than you probably know me because I've watched you,
Hmm.
but we haven't really like talked.
Yeah, I'm a fanboy of some other creators, so I get what you're saying. If you watch people enough, you get a feel for how they are.
And I don't have a channel. I've been telling myself for years until my personal life isn't a shit show that I can't have one, and it's never come to fruition.
And hello, Gladys, by the way. At Ruckus, Frank's asking to be unbanned or unblocked. Oh, okay. Yeah, shit. Okay. Sorry about that, Frank. Forgot all about that. I'm
We're
gonna
gonna have to
put.
give Frank a new name.
Yeah,
outside of New Frank. I've just been calling him New Frank.
yeah. Well, he's
It's interesting.
Dutch, so maybe we can come up with a Dutch word or something. But I'm going to bring this document up, and then I'm going to go and unblock Frank. You know, he told me he
Okay.
was going to stop in. I should have realized that earlier.
Do you have easy access to your Discord?
Hmm.
Okay, I'm going to send you a screenshot of something we can possibly
Okay.
talk about too that I just remembered.
Okay. I'm just going to put this up for 1 second. I'm going to run and see if I can take it. Oh, I can't. Frank, I'm going to have to do it after the show, buddy. I'm sorry. I'll get it straightened out. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Let me go to.
Oh, I guess I should warn you. I don't know how good my mic is. Well, I have a dog in front of me, and then behind me is a very old cat who is snoring right now. In case anybody hears that, and
Okay,
he
did
gets
you
to do what
send
he
that
wants.
screenshot?
I just sent it.
Oh, I see it.
That was her answering somebody asking about the charge, and it was a little more general than, I don't know if general is the word, but they have to prove like even less than I thought.
Hmm. Let me bring this up real quick. I'll throw it on the screen. Yeah, just for a little history so people know, I don't have a problem with Frank. I understand what he was doing. We have a history. I know Frank very well. And we worked well together, actually, but with just our personalities just don't match. And there's nothing wrong with that. That happens all the time.
I would like to say something to Frank. I don't mind you, but you cannot call me a troll. I'm going to ask questions. I question everybody. I question the people that I am the bestest of friends with. Questions aren't trolling. They're just not. And if you're going to make a claim, the best way you can prove your claim is for people to question you and try to disprove it. It's like the best way to prove something.
Correct. All right, let me see if I can find that image. But you have to remember as well that Frank's Dutch, so some of the stuff gets lost in translation. It really
That is probably
does.
very true.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'm just gonna make it bigger and it'll cover us up. But all right, if you want to read that, have at it.
So this is a response to somebody asking about his charges, and it says, it's even easier for the state. The state only has to prove that Allen helped kidnap the girls. We call it accomplice liability. The state does not have to prove Allen intended to kill the girls or even that he actually kidnapped them, just that he aided, induced, or caused the kidnappers to take the girls, and that during that kidnapping, the girls died.
What do you think about that?
I think that it's even easier than I thought. I thought they were having to prove that he did kidnap them, but based on that, he didn't even have to be the one technically that kidnapped them, even though, I mean, it sounds like that's what they're arguing is that's him on the bridge. But I, let's see. So I'm pretty sure the most of the time I am an Richard Allen is likely guilty person, but I still want to see what they have. I don't think you can have like a very good, you can have an opinion, but not like a hard opinion until you really see all the evidence that's presented at trial. So without that, I still kind of go with he's likely guilty. That being said, I also question though, why weren't they able to charge him with just regular murder? Like, do they not have the evidence?
Well, I'm going to find this right now because I've looked into this. Um, let's see. Okay, let me see if I can. Yeah, I can do this. I'm just going to cut this out. This is the homicide chapter of the Indiana statutes, universal citation. So this kind of stuff is like in my wheelhouse.
I think I argued with you about this after when he was first arrested,
Mm-hmm.
because I was going like off the wording in the statute,
Mm-hmm.
and the wording makes it sound like that person has to kill the victim. But then later, when I did more research and found cases where it was used, it's not the case.
Well, it has. Trying to get to my desktop here. The statute, it's very, and people, I'm from Massachusetts, so I say statute. Some people say statute. So I may be wrong in
I just
pronouncing
assume
that.
you're wrong pronouncing everything. But that's okay.
Let me see.
I'm from Oklahoma. I can't give people too much trouble about pronunciation.
What's wrong with Oklahoma?
As long as you stay in the north half, you're fine. But once you get like south of I-40, we say the IQ drops a good 10 or 20 points.
Oh, okay.
People get real twangy, which there's nothing wrong with twangy.
I can't talk about anything like that. I am not the smartest guy in the world, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I can get away
That's
with it.
fancy.
Fancy schmancy. All right. I'm talking all this shit. Oh, yeah, I can do this. No problem. Right? All right. Come on, buddy. You only got to be 2% smarter than this thing that you're working with. Let's see if I can drag this on here. Can you guys see that? Wow, that's big, isn't it?
It was very big.
All right. Let me see if I can fix that. Nothing but the best on this podcast. Look how organized I am.
As long as it works, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the homicide code, right? We agree on that. Now,
Yes.
a person who knowingly or intentionally kills another human being, right? That's murder.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to throw an aggravating factor on it, kills, and that's the key word to me, kills another human being while committing or attempting to commit, and we now know is kidnapping. There's a whole list of things here. So it
That's what
does.
always made me think, yeah, it was, he had to kill them, but it was an aggravated factor, like you said, with the other thing being tacked on.
Correct. So that they made it harder on themselves. No, in the way that Weineke thing just read, it was easy. Oh, they just have to prove that he kidnapped him, and they got him on video. So that's all they have to do. No, they made it harder on themselves.
But I've seen that charge used in what a lot of other states call felony murder, where somebody dies in the commission of a felony, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're the getaway driver and somebody robs a bank, shoots and kills somebody, you're every bit as guilty as they are.
So I've seen like that charge used in those situations. So that should be easier, right? Because then you just have to prove that he kidnapped them and that kidnapping led to their death.
Right. It would be easier if the bank robber was in here. If there was another person involved, yeah, that's easy. That's easy. Saying, well, you tried to kidnap and he killed him, but you kidnapped him, so you're as guilty as he is. Do you follow me? If there's not another
Yeah.
person involved, they're making it harder on themselves.
I
It's
don't know if I
kind
agree with that, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's kind of like back in my day, we would have got him for jaywalking. That bullet, we'd get him for littering. Everything. You just throw everything at him, and but it's not like that anymore. They've changed all the statutes and stuff, so they read like this. But it definitely. Do you agree that little two? It definitely starts with the word kills.
Yeah, that was my original, and maybe it wasn't you that I was arguing with. Maybe it was somebody else because it sounds like you had the same opinion that I did then. whoever it was, I argued like I quoted it in the chat like 10 different times. It says kills another human. But then when I did more research, it sounds like they didn't actually have to physically kill them.
Hmm.
So then to me they it sounded like they knew that, cuz I'm sure you know from experience that you can know something is true, but you don't have the evidence to prove that.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
then I assumed that maybe it's like a situation like that. They just can't prove it and feel like they have a pretty good chance at winning, because that, you want to talk about a failure. A failure of somebody being acquitted would be way worse than never finding somebody.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's why I thought maybe they did that, but maybe I'm misunderstanding it.
Hey Shane, how are you, buddy? All right, let me see if I can find a question here. Does anybody have an opinion on this? I'm going to skip over a whole bunch of the chat.
I have a
To get
question from the chat that I think would be a good one. If I guess, do you think if they're going with that, do you think that means that there are other people involved that could be charged in the future?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's why they charged him like that.
Okay.
I would think if it's just kidnapping, they have other suspects ready to arrest. Well, like we were just saying, Mark. Um, hey, zero control. That's what we were just saying. They may have suspects, but they don't have enough evidence yet. You don't want to just arrest somebody. You get one shot, so you got to make sure all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. Because you get one shot, you do not want them to walk. Let's see what Miranda has. He's been charged with murder with underlying offenses. Under Indiana state law, they could be murdering while committing or attempting to commit arson, burglary, child molesting, consumer. Yeah, that whole list. I understand that, Miranda, but as you can see, it's up here in the screen. Um, Under Indiana state law, they could be murdering while committing. Well, it doesn't say that. It says kills another human being. So even though this is a murder charge, it's technically homicide. This all falls under the homicide chapter. So it's murder, because you could kill somebody by mistake.
Yeah, because I don't. I'm sure you've talked about that before. Homicide, like even if it's a complete accident, you kill somebody, or you kill somebody in self-defense, or a police kills somebody and they're justified. That's still homicide. It's just not murder, right?
Right, right, exactly. And there's different levels, like you were talking about felony murder. There's different levels. I mean, once you get into um, the manslaughter side of the house.
See, Indiana, I don't know if they have a manslaughter. I know they don't have like the first degree, second degree. They're kind of weird like that.
Hmm. Hey, true crime fan girl. Yeah, Sleuth. I
In fact,
agree. They had him on the short list for a while. I agree as well.
like a while before the arrest.
I
I guess
yeah
that'd be
I
the only option.
I think so. They had to they have to, like we just talked about. They have to get the evidence, probable cause. A lot of this argument that's happening right now is over probable cause. People are saying, well, he had no right to go into his house. Law enforcement lied to the judge and stuff like that. Now, if that indeed happened, if they did lie to the judge to get that search warrant, then all of that, the fruits of that search should be tossed out. I agree 100%.
I heard from an attorney that in that case, the test, there's like almost a test. Like, let's say somebody did lie. I don't, surely there'd be repercussions for that, but you would remove that from the probable cause. And if there was still enough to have probable cause after you removed that, then it would stand, which sometimes I think people don't understand how low the bar is for probable cause. Isn't it like, is it 50%? Or is it lower than that?
It's you have to have you have to think like a reasonable, rational person. That's what our whole Constitution.
That's hard for some people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who gauges that? That's a tough one. Who gauges that? That's what reasonable doubt is. That any reasonable and rational person would say that, yeah, you most likely did this. You know. Now the way
If
the
I'm
law
remembering
works.
right,
Go ahead.
I think it was like a if you reason. I hope I'm getting this right and it's not a different word, but I'm pretty sure it was probable cause. If you believe that reasonably there is a 51% chance, so like over 50, did that person did that,
Hmm. Well,
and
it's.
and then the without a doubt is the like a conviction.
Hmm. Well, that's a hard. I mean, I would not want to be on a jury in a case like this.
No.
I wouldn't at all. But I don't have to worry about that. But here's the thing, though: the way they charge them, and the only reason why I'm talking about this is because that screenshot that you just sent me. Let me see if I can pull that back up again, because it is interesting compared to this one, compared to the statute. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've been enjoying. For some reason, it never occurred to me to look on Twitter until all this stuff started happening, and it's interesting to be able to see attorneys practicing in Indiana, like
Right.
what their opinion is.
Okay. So these people are saying it's even easier for the state. So what they're saying is, by charging him this way, they're making it easier on themselves, and they only have to prove that he helped kidnap the girls, not that he kidnapped them, that he helped. And it's accomplice liability is what they call it. The state does not have to prove Allen intended to kill the girls, or even that he actually kidnapped them, just that he aided, induced, or caused the kidnappers to take the girls, and that during that kidnapping, the girls died. Now, in today's day and age, so what this is saying, if he catfished them out there, he doesn't even have to be at the bridge. If he catfished them out there, then he's every bit as liable than whoever took them, right? That's what I read this as.
So you're saying if he like if it was some crazy coincidence and he catfished them out there, but wasn't involved in the murder at all? Is that what you're saying?
Well, he said they don't even have to prove that he actually kidnapped them, just that he aided, induced, or caused the kidnappers to take the girls. So if he catfished them out there, that should be enough to charge him with that. That's what
Yeah.
I'm reading, anyways.
I think that's what I'm reading too. And one of the questions I had would be if, let's say that they did prove that he aided or caused or induced or whatever, would they then have to prove another person did that? Or is that because they were murdered, obviously murdered, does that take care of that part and you don't have to prove any of that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the probable cause and the charge. Now, law enforcement turns over their evidence to the DA, to the prosecutor. They decide what the charge is. Law enforcement pretty much knows when they make the arrest, they put the statute number and all that, but the DA can change that or add to it or take away from, depending on the evidence. But if you look at the probable cause, if you look at everything in whole, uh, they're not saying that, hey, there's other people involved. They've been very careful not to say that, in my eyes.
That
It
there
would
are or there's not.
that there's not that they're not saying that he, along with somebody else, did this crime. They're making it a point not to say that, even
Yeah,
though they know that more people are involved. Do you follow me?
I mean, I don't know if I'd agree with that part, but I follow you. McClellan said, I think that's as close as they've come. McClellan saying to keep the probable cause or for the arrest sealed, saying that there may be more people or whatever he said. I forget his wording.
Yeah, other actors, I think he said. But I didn't mean that as to say that they know that other people are involved. I'm saying that if they did,
Okay,
they
yes, I
they were
agree.
purposely not putting that out there,
But you
and that
you
makes
agree with
sense
that
to
though,
me.
right?
Oh
Or like
yeah,
you believe that?
yeah, absolutely.
I have a
Uh,
weird relationship with that. My gut has always been that it's a lone wolf But then my logical side comes out more recently in the last couple of years, saying that, like, statistically, or maybe not statistically, but considering all the evidence, is probably more likely that it's more, but my gut, for some reason, with no evidence behind it, is like lone wolf.
Mm. Yeah, the way they charged him, it just in this statute, this is it. This is the Bible. This is what they have to go by. And this is the most updated one. This is 2022. And so it's pretty cut and dry that murder is knowingly or intentionally killing another human being. Well, then you tack on that if you kill another human being while now, and also you look up at section 1, it says 1, a person who,
Mm-hmm.
and then you jump down to 2, kills another human being while committing or attempting to commit kidnapping, which is, we now know that that's what it is. So you have to read the whole thing. And when you read it out loud, it sounds a little different, doesn't it? A person who
Yeah.
kills another human being while committing or attempting to commit kidnapping.
So that's what I had argued forever and ever when he first was arrested.
Yeah, I mean it's right there, but is it? I don't know Indiana lawyer talk. Um, I'm sure we have attorneys around that could jump in. I talked to Mark Lopez. Do you know who he is? He's an
I
he's
don't
an
think I
Indiana
do.
attorney. Yeah, he's really cool. And the lawyer, Peter, he lives not too far from me here, and I've dealt with his office a few times trying to help people out with cases. Don
Hmm.
Morse with his case with his granddaughter.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I know
yeah,
him.
yeah, Peter was able to get him in touch with another attorney down in the Sarasota area. Peter's a good guy, and his
Oh, that's
dad's really
good.
good. Yeah, my wife thinks he's a hunk.
I I don't. I have a lot of different things I watch on YouTube, and only so many hours of the day.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah,
a lot of channels that I watch.
yeah. Ellie, why would McClellan say that? That there's other actors, right? And there's just so much involved. Ives, after he stepped down, he starts talking about what the crime scene looked like. That kind of pissed me off. I'm sure law
I want to.
enforcement wasn't happy with him at all about that.
I wish I could get into a bar and buy that man a couple of drinks and listen to him talk.
Yeah, I almost got a chance to hang out with him. OG
I
Do Dirty, what's up, my brother? $2 super chat. Salute to
That's a
Ruckus
nice name.
Rocks.
Is that Pac back there? Is that what that is? I think
The
it
what?
is. Is that
Is that?
Tupac back there in that picture?
It looks like Tupac, but let me throw him some money. There we go. Thank you, Do Dirty. You're a good man.
Before the Odin stuff came out, because I have screenshots somewhere. It'd take me a minute to find them, but I have screenshots somewhere of that article on. It wasn't on TV. Some people say that they heard him say the non secular on TV, but the one I'm talking about was the article. And it was the lady who went out with Kelsey and them to the bridge when it was snowing, I think. And then she wrote an article about it. And that's where he said non secular, and then it was removed. And I always thought that that could be because it doesn't necessarily have to be because he said that. It could be something like she misunderstood and he called back later and he's like, that's not what I said. Because for one, I think just using the word non secular is weird. Why wouldn't you just say religious? Like,
Hmm.
that's not something somebody says. But then at the same time, it could be an off the record thing. And then he called her and was like, hey, what are you doing? That was off the record.
Hmm.
So I think it could go both ways, but I don't think it's like a slam dunk that he actually said that, even though people are pointing back at that since the Odin stuff came out.
Hmm. What's up, Trash Media Group? Yeah, this somebody just put on here that the podcasters said that this charges their trump card. Here we go.
What does that
And,
mean?
and the prosecutor podcast, I'm a fanboy of them. I'll tell you that right now, Alice and
I have watched
okay.
them and I do like them.
Yeah.
But what does that mean, a trump card exactly?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. Um, because if you go by the PC, if you look at that statute, what the statute reads, right, and we just read it, that's what they have to go by. That's the ruler that they have to use. So if that's the case, then the PC should say something different, shouldn't it?
Yeah, and I know it's different state to state, but I always kind of pictured PCAs for arrest like having kind of the stuff of like what Richard Allen's did, but in the bottom saying like blah 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 and that he killed blah 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 blah. Like
Hmm.
kind of a summing it up statement. And I don't remember his having that. Is that something, or am I assuming wrong on that?
Well, no, you have to. Probable cause is, again, it falls under what a reasonable person would believe. You know, a 21-year-old cop has more power than the president of the United States. The president of the United States cannot come in my house and take my freedom when a
Mm.
21-year-old cop can. But he first has to say that I broke the law. There's probable cause, which means that any normal person, we'll just use that word, would agree that, yes, I did this. And that's what it all stems from. That it comes straight out of the Constitution. That's what started this whole mess. But let's get into. I knew that by going into that, I didn't plan on that, bringing that stuff up, and I'm glad that
That
you.
was my fault.
No, I'm glad that you sent me that screenshot. No, because it's very interesting. We're this
I
far
was
along
trying
in the case, and we're still talking about why he was arrested.
to, and I think that's like I said, I'm in the middle, so I think both sides have done things that they probably shouldn't have, but that probably happens in a lot of cases, just depends on to what degree. But then also neither side is like totally evil, like some people think.
Hmm.
I forgot where I was going with that. Hold on. Let's see. What did you just say?
Let me get this super
Oh,
chat.
you brought it. Yes, I have major ADHD.
That's okay. No
Gail,
worries. Gail Hurd, super sticker, $3. Thank you so much, Gail. I appreciate it.
I remember what it was now.
Go for it.
Um, so that's my opinion on both sides. But the fact that we are still talking about that does say something, in my opinion, about the way the probable cause was written and how you can dissect it in so many ways, and it's never clear.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, look at I haven't followed this case since after they did the arrest, but the Idaho, my gosh, that probable cause compared to Delphi's is just like
Hmm.
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a big difference. But also, once I started, when I went into booking, right, and I started working closely with the judges for advisories and stuff like that, depending on the judge, I had written so many PCs, it was crazy. So I knew how to write the PC, I knew how to go over the PC. But then I also learned, hey, Judge Webb's working this weekend. That's not going to fly. He's going to toss it. He's going to give you no
Yeah.
PC, and you're going to have to come in on your time off and amend it. At Ruckus, they said it was because of the way Indiana doesn't charge second-degree murder or something similar. I swear, that's what all LAW tubers were saying. What's AW? Oh, the law tubers.
Law tubers.
See, this is what I'm saying. I'm not used to this stuff. I'm thinking it means something else. Like OIC. Oh, what's that mean? OIC.
Oh, I see. Exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I got caught up reading Elle's comment about people being extreme, which I agree with.
Right.
Well, I don't know if I agree with the second half, but I definitely agree with the first sentence of it.
Yeah. I mean, none of us should have a dog in this fight. Now, I believe that he's guilty, but I don't have a dog in the fight.
That's
If
the
if
difference,
he's
I think.
found not guilty, then so be it. I just hope that he's not found not guilty because of a mistake that somebody made. That's happened. And
That's something that Oh, sorry, I keep interrupting you. Go on.
No, no, no. Go ahead. You're the guest. You talk.
I was going to say something that has really gotten on my nerves lately is when people do it's the pro. I hate saying pro prosecution, but I don't know what else to call them. Those people, some of them will sometimes get into the well. We have to remember this is about justice for Libby and Abby, but a fair trial convicting the correct person is justice for Libby and Abby.
Absolutely.
Convicting Richard Allen itself by itself, like just him, that is not justice for Libby and Abby. It's convicting the correct person using the correct procedures in a fair trial.
Agreed. 100% agreed. And I've seen enough. I've been around since March with my own channel. And so you start to look at other people and how they operate and try and learn the craft, you know. Well, then you start seeing patterns and you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of draw a line in the sand and you can put creators on either side of that line. There's very few that straddle that line. But you can see where their arguments are fantastic, but you already know because of their actions. They're not arguing this because we all have these rights. They're arguing it because it does not meet their narrative. Do you know what I mean? I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, we all have these rights. And if they're violating his rights, they could violate mine. And I agree with that, but not when you just because it doesn't meet your narrative. What's up, Hoosier? Devoted to Mariah. All right, I'm going to throw up this filing from today.
And I'm not sure that I'm not like positive that they don't have a case.
What do you
Part of
mean?
the reason is that I'm devoted to Mariah. She said, first of all, none of us have heard the prosecutor's case. They're following the gag orders. So why are we so sure they have no case again? I mean, I know there are other people who are doing that, but
No, I agree.
I
And
don't
and
go
and
that far.
again, it just sounds like, it's a agenda thing, a narrative rather than, you know, well, they have no case because of this, this, and this. They just say they have no case. Now, I'm not pro prosecution. I'm pro law enforcement. Law enforcement's already done their job, and that's why I
Mm-hmm.
say that he's guilty because law enforcement has done their job. They're not just going to throw somebody in jail and leave him to rot there for a year if they are not positive that he's guilty. So
I'll grumble about that.
yeah, no,
There, I mean,
yeah, that's fine, but that's where I stand with it. I'm pro law enforcement, not pro authority. You know.
it's a very small um, portion of people who are incarcerated, but it's still a big enough number that there are plenty of people who didn't do what they're in prison for. And
Hmm.
plenty of people who there's evidence, like good evidence, like sometimes even DNA evidence, that proves that they are innocent, but the prosecution, I guess the DA or whoever gets so caught up in it as being a win that they don't want to admit it.
Mm. Now, are you a numbers person, statistics and stuff like that?
I am. I use that word a lot too. I wish I should have
Okay.
gotten I should have done a minors in it, but I didn't.
Well, and this just I'm pulling this off the top of my head, but I'm sure it still stands. I know that back in 2002, 2003, around there, it was a fact. 70 to 75% of all cases that are wrongful convictions are directly due to eyewitness testimony.
They're
So
terrible.
so
They're
most
terrible.
most of these people that are getting found guilty, it's not because law enforcement making mistakes. It's because of bad eyewitnesses. Because when they get overturned because the witness changes their story or they found out the witness was perjuring themselves. So it's not like this is an epidemic where law enforcement's doing a bad job. And
Let
anybody
me
that
back up.
oh, go ahead.
That's not what I meant exactly. I guess I meant it's the believing, like just because you in your mind you know that's the right person, does it make it the right person? Not necessarily that law enforcement like did something.
Well, you have to prove it. That's why we have our Constitution and our laws. I mean, you have to prove it. You can't. You can have somebody on video, and I've said this, I keep saying it, I sound like a broken record. Look at the Casey Anthony case and the OJ case, right? Just because everybody knows you did it does not mean you're going to get found guilty.
Hmm.
And at this point in the trial, as far as Richard Allen's concerned, law enforcement is done with him. They've already turned over everything for Richard Allen. They're working on other avenues of the case, other things. So they don't have anything left to do with him. Otherwise, he wouldn't still be in prison. Yeah, who's just said that statistic still stands? Okay, so it's not. And again, I am biased. I'll tell anybody that it's
I
not
mean,
law
it's
enforcement
good
that
you're
make a
aware of it.
mistake. Yeah,
Everybody has bias. It's whether you're
yeah,
aware of it or not.
yeah. But it's so these eyewitnesses are very. Why do we keep using them if they're not reliable? Well, they got
I think
convictions on these eyewitnesses. They're very
mhm,
powerful to a jury.
it's human nature.
Yeah.
Somebody told you they saw it, but we just don't. People don't, even though like maybe logically they know or they've been told that. Like human nature believes somebody who tells you they saw it with their own eyes.
Hmm. Yeah. And Hoosier just did a podcast about the sketches and stuff like that, and it was excellent. I watched it yesterday. I don't know when he put it out, but I watched it
Yeah.
yesterday, and it was excellent. But I've been screaming at my computer since day one of this case, just yelling at everybody, saying the sketches don't matter. You have never seen one case where they walk into the courtroom, hold one of those sketches up next to the guy, and say, "See, it's him. Lock him up."
No, and I'll never understand like, and maybe it just goes back to it because it matches their theory, but I never understand how people can say like, well, this person said this thing, but the other person said this thing, or in the sketches, oh, well, that their noses kind of don't match. That is what who looks at that stuff when you're out and you don't know something happened? Like nobody's going to think like, oh, well, their nose is upturned instead of like straight. Nobody really thinks that unless it's extreme.
Yeah, most people are not aware of their surroundings and stuff like that, and especially now with cell phones and all that.
Yeah, I'm not at all.
So to have a eyewitness that's got a good enough look for a sketch, I've seen cases where there's four eyewitnesses inside of a bank, all describe the same person. One of them said he was black. One said he had blonde hair. One said they couldn't even get a decent sketch out of the deal. And you know how banks are. You can go to Busch Gardens and go through a tunnel at 90 miles an hour on a roller coaster, and they snap a picture that's clear as day. But they cannot
Hmm.
take a good picture of
Oh
a
my
bank robber
gosh,
standing in
yes.
front of the damn teller.
I don't
I could
understand
never
that.
understand that.
And
But
I've
yes,
said it several times. Oh, sorry, go on.
HCC is absolutely right. The sketches are to get leads. They're just to get people's thought juices going. You start looking around. And they always put it with, hey, if you see anybody that looks like this and they're acting differently, hey, Mel, and they're acting differently. They always throw that stuff in there. It's not just the sketch you got to look at. This person that may look like this, now think, have they been acting weird? Did they leave town? Stuff like that. Yeah, me as a witness, I would say, yeah, he had a head, ears, and two arms.
Yeah, I don't. Like, I couldn't tell. I've lived in my house now for like, I don't know, 7-ish years maybe. I could not get an accurate sketch of any of my neighbors, even though I see them. I don't know what they look like. I could tell you what their cars are maybe, but that's about all.
Yeah.
But I've said this on a couple of different shows. For some reason, I've been on a couple of different shows this last like week or so. And even though most people know how I feel about Greeno, one of the best things he ever did was during one show, he showed this thing and it said, like, watch this promo I made or something like that. And then afterwards, he was like, what color or what was that guy wearing? And it was literally like 10 seconds later. There were
Mm.
so many different answers. And I don't know if anybody got it right, but it was like, it was a perfect point made.
Okay, Brian Emery, how are you? Says in Indiana, murder is just felony murder. Also, you can be a lookout for a home invasion where your accomplice is killed by the homeowner and you are up for murder. Yes, yes, that is a fact. I've seen that several times. Um, hmm, wear wristwatches, yeah.
What do you think of this? What do you think of her? Was that Captain's idea? I mean, he does have good ideas. Wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, hey,
Um,
Captain Howdy.
what did you think about her ordering the all the stuff back on like the CCS? I don't even know what CCS stands for. What
It's
does
just the
CCS
system.
stand for, Chet?
It's the system. The
But
my
what does it
case,
stand?
you know. I don't know. I don't know. It's criminal court
For?
system, maybe
Maybe. I
something
don't know.
similar to that.
But
It's
but
something along those lines.
what do you think about her ordering that before, like instead of just letting the mandamus play out?
Well, she obviously wasn't worried about because there wasn't one yet, but she wasn't concerned when she made these rulings about a mandamus. She was confident that she was well within the law and what she's supposed to do, and she basically with this filing today. Let's take a quick look at this. Now she's basically saying with everything that listen, there's no grounds for a mandamus in probation. There's none.
Hmm.
Not to mention they didn't even file it on time. And anything that I said that cannot be made public or put in the filing is going to stay just that because, and she went down the line. You know, they did not redact that memorandum. They didn't file this on time. That she really had an answer for everything. But here's what I'm not seeing in this. I'm not seeing where she says, no, you can't have that transcript from the 19th. Did you see that anywhere in there?
No, she hasn't. That was not mentioned that I saw.
Yeah. Now she had two choices. The Supreme Court said you either turn over the transcripts or you give us a reason. You file with a reason why, right?
That's
Um,
in the other case.
the what?
That's in the other case. The other mandamus.
Okay, so this one stands apart. So there'll be another one coming, is what you're telling me, just for that
Yeah,
transcript.
I think the deadline for that is the 27th. Yeah, so there was
Okay.
like basically a mandamus for public access, and then there was a mandamus for the defense attorney debacle. And even though that transcript is public access, they're getting it for the defense attorney thing.
Okay. Because I read these little boxes here, these footnotes. They usually tell you more than the whole 10
Hmm.
pages of shit tells you. But I wasn't seeing anything that even implied that. So, oh, am I cutting in and out? Usually my sound's pretty good.
You sound good on my end. I don't know if that translates. Oh, chronological case summary. That's what CCS is.
Oh, okay, there you go. Wow, somebody's smart. Well, they looked it
They
up
are.
real quick.
Either way, I don't care.
Gladys
It's got the
Kravitz,
answer.
$9.99. Have a drink on me, Ruckus. Thank you so much. It's so awesome. I have the nicest people.
They are very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got quite a few of them in here.
141.
That's a lot of people.
I've had 10 and I've had 400. So I don't hardly ever look at it. I just run my mouth and see where the time goes. So this here, what I did what you did. I hit the high letters, the high notes, the high words, and just surmised it from there. It sounds to me like she's telling them to go outside and play hide and go fuck yourself with this one.
Which I mean, like, what? What's the other option? They're not gonna make a filing and be like, guess you're right."
Mm. Now, from what I understand, there's something coming down the pipe tonight around midnight.
Really? I wonder
So
what.
this may be it. You know. but I heard there's something coming around midnight.
One thing I'd really like to know is, because it sounds like just filing for a writ of mandamus in general is pretty uncommon, but I'd really like to know how often do they not get accepted, and what is the timeline usually on the Supreme Court accepting them? Because they seem to accept them pretty fast, and it sounds like that's usually the case when they do accept them, but I wonder how often they don't, or if they ever don't accept them.
Hmm. Well, they have to rule on this. Something has to happen here. Um,
I think there's an option where they don't have to accept the case. They can just say, no, we're not doing that.
right. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what gets dropped tonight. I've been
Well, they
saying that
already,
since they started this. That they don't have to
when
look at too
they,
much.
so when they originally did it, like, they filed the writ of mandamus, and then, like, just a few hours later, it seemed like they did that. I can't think of what it says on there, but it's basically saying, like, we'll accept this. But I think there are cases where they don't, though, but these both have already been accepted. And the reason I'm curious about that is, does that say that there's any merit to them? Of course, they could also just be doing it because it's such a big case.
Hmm. Well, what I was just saying is, they don't have to see too much of it to say, yeah, this is worth looking at, or no, it's not. You know. That was a good question there. No, I have not seen anything, and that makes all the difference in the world. Where Ron Logan, Jesus, Richard Allen was seen on 300, if that indeed was Richard Allen. And that's, again, we're talking about eyewitness testimony here, guys.
I have a question about that. Something that Frank said, new Frank. He's, I saw him, he said it in his community post, and then he said it in one of his lives a couple of times too. I can't remember his exact wording, but basically it was like the majority of the people's consensus is that he left through the cemetery. Is that true?
I don't think he left via the cemetery.
I don't either, and I didn't know if I was just out of touch with if
Yeah,
like a lot of other people think that.
he may have. We don't know that yet. Um, there's evidence that puts him at the crime scene. And this is just me talking. I'm not trying to convince anybody else. There's evidence that puts him at the crime scene that they cannot explain away. Okay. So he goes from the crime scene to 300. Now, even Doug Carter said that this is a rural area. There's multiple points of egress. So, he could have gone in any number of directions. To me, none of that makes sense. The whole thing didn't make sense. I don't want to whoop a dead horse. I've talked about this a few times. But his plan was not to kidnap anybody at the bridge and then walk them all the way back to his car at the CPS building. I mean, can we
Yeah.
agree on that? Yeah. So why are they charging him with kidnapping? What do they know? What do they
I just
know?
assumed that once he has a gun on somebody and is controlling their movement, it's kidnapping, is what I assumed.
I have seen arguments over 6 inches. If you move somebody 6 inches against their will without touching them, threatening them, that's kidnapping. I've seen that
That sounds
argued.
a little ridiculous, but
Absolutely. Absolutely. But does it matter how far? That was the whole point of it. Does it matter how far? Is that kidnapping or is that not kidnapping? And this was the defense that was making this argument. And I thought it was pretty slick because, what
yeah.
they wanted to get to the point with the jury. Well, how far then? How far is kidnapping? You know, so it's a valid point,
But
very
if you
valid point.
march them, however they got across the creek, even though I don't know where that line is, and I'm assuming that's their point, it's that is over the line. And I feel like once you get a weapon out too, that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, if they had no intention, because even if they ran, Ivy, he pulls the gun out and they run immediately, no words spoken. That's still, they're moving against their will because they did not want to go where they're now going. They're doing it because of his actions.
Hmm.
So, On the day the judge dismissed Rosalind Baldwin, who called the meeting at her chambers, the defense or the judge for the prosecution? I'm not sure. I'm assuming the judge wanted to talk to them, but I'm also assuming that they were fully aware that this was a closed door meeting and that it wasn't going to be made public. So, hey, listen, I would hire either one of those attorneys.
It's another thing that annoys me is when people are like, "Oh, well, they're just shitty attorneys." No, give me one of them if I ever get charged with something.
They are just the right amount of shady for me. They're defense attorneys. You know, I said this the other day. Did you ever watch the Defense Diaries, Bob Mata?
Yeah.
Now, his dad represented Gacy,
Hmm.
right? And he knew Gacy was guilty, and yet he still represented him. Does that mean he has a poor moral compass? No,
No, that's how
he's
the
doing
system
his
works.
job, right? He's doing his job. Now, the defense has seen a preponderance of the evidence. Okay, so they know now whether they've made a decision in their head as well whether or not he's guilty, and they know he's guilty, and they still have to represent him. Or if they know he's not guilty, they still have to represent him. But if you know somebody's guilty, that's got to be morally hard to do. You know, to especially with a case like this.
What do you think about Bob from the Defense Diaries? He, from what I've heard, is adamant that they believe he is innocent.
He's a defense attorney.
But do you think the defense attorneys would admit, like,
Sure.
yeah, sometimes we don't believe they're innocent, sometimes we know they're guilty?
After the fact. But you still don't want to say that too much because you're a defense attorney. Who the hell's going to hire
Yeah.
you? You know what I mean? I know that his wife is definitely still practicing. So, you know, he's not going to do a YouTube channel and say, "Oh no, that guy's guilty. The defense is full of shit." Blah blah blah. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Defense
That's
attorneys,
true.
that's their mindset. You know, and we need that. We need that every bit as much as we need assholes like me. You know, we need people to walk the other side of the aisle. You know, that's
That's
what
the only
makes
way it
this country
works.
great. Yeah, but we can do it without arguing and fighting and all that. That's what the system's for. Otherwise, the biggest person would just win every time. Okay, the reason I asked, I thought I recently heard it was actually the defense that called the meeting, and I did not know that. I have
Hold on.
no
I don't
idea who
think that's
initiated
right.
it. Yeah, CJK. Defense attorneys are like car salesmen, but so are prosecutors. You know, I've
Yeah,
said
let's
this
not get it
before.
twisted.
Yeah,
Prosecutors twist things like they're not all puppies and rainbows.
sure. During cross examination, you'll see the prosecutors doing their thing too. They're not stupid. They know how to spin a tale as well. But I've said this as well, and I know people are sick of hearing me talk all this shit. But at this point, right now, as far as Richard Allen goes, the facts no longer matter. It's all about sleight of hand, smoke and mirrors, uh, presentation. You know, how can they trick the jury? And that's what it's all about. So
One
the
thing
best
I've been
litmus would be
very
to see
oh,
his opinion on other cases, and if he always says he thinks people are innocent.
that would
He,
be.
yeah, he may not, Hoosier. But I'm saying that I've met a bunch of defense attorneys, and you can pick them out from a mile away. And I don't mean pick them out of a crowd. I mean if you took a whole bunch of attorneys, you'd be able to find out pretty quickly which ones are prosecutors and which ones are defense attorneys. And I'm not mad at either one of them at all. They like to argue. That's why they argue cases. They like to argue.
One that the one you just got away from, it was, I think it was CJK, was, I got my chat down. I think he was agreeing with Crimezilla about getting a child killer off. That's I disagree with that. And I don't know, because that's not their job. They didn't get somebody off. The prosecution didn't get a conviction. It's not their job. I mean, it is their job to, defend their client, but the proof isn't on them. The proof is on the prosecution. So if that person is acquitted or gets off, that's because the prosecution didn't make their case.
Mm. If you ask me, if I could do one thing for this country, I would get rid of jury trials. Get rid of them. Let the judge
Yeah.
decide. Because the judge
I've
isn't going
always
to take any
wondered
shit. They're not going to fall for anything.
I've always wondered, like, statistically, I don't even know if there's any way to research that, like how often juries get it right and how often they get it wrong versus a judge in a bench trial.
Mm. I don't know. Yeah, I honestly don't know. It's going to be it's going to be interesting. I personally don't think it's going to make it to trial.
What do you think will happen? Do you think he'll plea?
Hoosier said, "Oof, I can't agree with that." With what? Which part? Yeah, I think he's going to plead out. I've been
What do you think
saying
will be the trigger for
I,
that?
I've been saying that since Jump Street, though. Um, the evidence, the evidence. He's not going to want to tell what happened in open court. He's just not. So that's what's going to hold things up because they're going to say, "Yeah, you can do it. We'll give you a plea deal, but you're going to tell everything that you did." Oh, I don't know about judges having that much power. Yeah, judges got more power than anybody in government.
So you think the closer it gets to the date, the trial date, the like once they get close, he'll change it, change his plea?
Any time between now and then, there's no real statistics on that stuff. I see it, Hoosiers. Putting all the power into the hands of a single judge seems like an easy avenue for corruption. I got you. Um, I would venture to say that on some level, Hoosier, all judges are corrupt. On some level, they all have their own little thoughts, and judges don't go against judges. Put it that way. If you come up on an appeal, you have to have something really good for them to allow it to go against another judge. Supreme Court doesn't even like doing that.
And that's why one thing that I have a feeling about, I don't really have that much to back it up. I came to this opinion after I listened to Kara Weineke on the Defense Diaries. I think even if Judge Gull is in the wrong, there's still a pretty big chance that the Supreme Court won't rule against her
I agree,
because
and
of
that's
that
what I'm
fact.
talking about. Yeah, there's yeah. I mean, they got to be really, really solid, and I'm talking about the defense's complaint for them to rule against a sitting judge. I mean, they're elected. You know, funny how the pictures leaked match exactly the description the defense was trying to describe in the Franks. Yes,
No, it
absolutely.
doesn't. Is
You
it?
don't. You
What?
don't.
Funny how the pictures leaked match exactly. Okay. I do agree with that, but oh, I didn't finish. That's exactly my opinion. I didn't finish the second part. They match it, but they don't look like runes. They match like how they describe the sticks, I guess. But
Hmm.
they don't. That doesn't look like a rune, though.
No, not to me either. They don't look like any kind of religious artifacts, but they're definitely not random, right?
Yeah, they're intentional,
And
definitely.
in my opinion, hey David, and this is just my opinion, I think it's a signature. If they plan to do it a second time, I guarantee you would have found sticks or something with a very similar pattern. These assholes want to make sure they get credit for their work.
There is so Abby, the stick to her. Let's see, that would be to her right, going up and downish.
Mm-hmm.
I heard somebody say that that's not actually on the ground, that it's
It's
actually
not.
like connected to a tree.
Yeah,
Is that true?
it's in the foreground. She obviously had the photos, or somebody had the photos, and they used AI to make them cartoonish. Had to catch myself in my Boston accent. I almost said cartoonish, and nobody would have known what I said.
Well, if
But
that
it's
one stick was involved, they would be the exact same almost.
yeah. Well, that stick is definitely connected to a tree. It's in the foreground. It's probably a very small stick.
Mhm.
It's blurry almost.
That's changes it for me a little bit. I mean,
Oh,
not
look,
changes my opinion on what it is, but
just got a notice. Judge Gull has filed her response. Think the notice was from TMS Facebook. See? I knew something was coming.
wait, is she talking about the one we just read though, or
I don't know. What's TMS? Facebook. Does
the murder
anybody know?
sheet maybe?
Oh, yeah, there you go. See, you're smart. I only call them MS, murder sheet.
I think that's the only thing I've seen him
Mel
called.
sent it to you.
Mel sent it to me.
Yeah.
Let's see.
We got some good people in the chat tonight. Some very
I
good
think that's the
questions.
one we just read. Is it 20 pages? Yeah, that's the one we just read, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah, one thing I
Thanks, Sleuth. Appreciate
was
it,
going
bud.
to say a minute ago that I think is important. I can't remember what brought it up in my mind then. I think it was when we were talking about juries. Is when it comes down to like say the Franks, where they're saying that this what's his face Liggett lied, all that stuff. There can be two, like you can have two contradictory statements and both people are still telling the truth because they're only telling little pieces of the truth. So, like the defense and their Franks, they're very specific about, say, Muddy Bloody Lady, Sarah Carbaugh,
Mm-hmm.
that she said when she talked to Liggett, when she talked to Liggett, when she talked to Liggett. It says it over and over again. But right after that, she had an interview with the sketch artist.
Mm-hmm.
So the bloody could have come out with the sketch artist. She just didn't say it with Liggett.
Sure.
So they can both be true at the same time, and that may not be the case, but I think that possibility gets lost on people.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. It's difficult and it's frustrating. You know, when you talk to people about something that you talk to them, you assume that they know, and they don't. So you have to explain everything. Well, it's the same thing here. Stuff gets lost that really isn't that big of a deal, but it looks like a big deal. You know. Oh, 63 clocks. Thank you so much. Ruckus Rock, standing with you in support of Ellie. Keep doing what you want. I don't know. I don't know how long you've been around my channel or not, but if you look at my rules up here above my head,
I
you see
see
those.
that up there. Yes, that's a
Thank you.
good rules to go by.
Thank you so much, 63 clocks. We all do it. We all do what we want. I'm just one of the few that will rub your nose in it.
Mm-hmm.
you know, I,
Hey, you know where you stand though. So
I got, excuse me, I got an email from Rick Snay, and he was pretty upset with me. And I emailed him back, said, I do what I want. And when he went on his live, he just shook his head. He said, you know what he sent back? I do what I want.
he does what he wants to. I mean,
We all do. I just,
yeah.
I think everybody's jealous that I got it as a catchphrase before they
It's a
did.
good catchphrase.
Yeah, because we all do what we want, period. You know who does what they want? My dogs. Absolutely.
Some everybody does what they want. Some people just are a little more um what am I trying to say? A little more affected by what others want them to do.
Hmm. Yeah, ever since I was a kid, I realized I can't control what people say or do. I can only control how I react to it. You know.
Yes, that's a good thing to learn.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
care how much it pissed me off. I'm not going to let you know.
I don't know how you pronounce the. Is it Lala One Fogo? I've seen her. I don't know if it's a her. In my head, it's a her. In the chat forever, and I've never said it out loud, so I don't know. But
Well, we haven't asked this person what their pronoun is. We have to be woke, don't we?
we have Maleficent back there. But
Lala One Fogo. That's what I'm
I
reading.
think though that say we can't be sure that the killer dressed Abby. He could have forced her to dress herself. I would think that she would have a lot of blood on her clothes if that was the case. At least the hoodie.
There
And
was
I haven't
not.
heard that.
There was not blood on there. Now,
So would you say that means she was dressed after?
yeah, and again, this is just my opinion. Um, she was wet. The pants were definitely wet. The left leg was muddy. Her sneakers were pristine though; they were clean. But if you've ever gotten out of the shower and tried to put a pair of socks on, you don't dry your feet very well, or put your pants on, or pajama pants, or whatever. It's difficult at best, and
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it to yourself, so you know where it's getting stuck and all that. If you're trying to do it to somebody else who's not assisting you, it's difficult.
If you ever want me to come back on and ramble aimlessly, I that's one of the things that really interests me. I guess my background with mental health and things like that, the psychological aspect of the crime scene is so interesting to me. And I think if we were able to find out what was in his head, I think the difference in how he treated them is going to be a huge thing.
Hmm.
Because they were treated so differently, even in my opinion, at least, even in the way they were moved.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, but that could be also out of necessity. One was totally different than the other. Period. Ruck, I had problems with Westville, but one in particular. CCTV has a means to document any abuse by correctional officers. Why hasn't Rosie asked for videos regarding that? I don't know, David. And there's one thing, I worked in a prison system. I worked death row. Um, I've done it all, and inmates cause more problems than correctional officers do. Trust me. Correctional officers are a minor inconvenience to inmates. They're worried about other inmates, not the COs. So it's hard to say. He's supposed to be under 24-hour video and audio surveillance. So they should be able to pull that up, and eventually we'll get to see it. But yeah, he's getting yelled at. The other inmates in that confinement area are yelling at him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're assholes. Trust me. I hated working in confinement. Do you know if RA can
I don't.
have any input about his court appointed attorneys? Nope. He can say that
Yeah,
he
I don't think
wants
so.
to keep them. And I think, if he says, hey, I don't want these people, the judge may do it once, maybe even twice. But that's it. It's not like having a paid attorney, private attorney. And what was that? Fogo is a place in Newfoundland. Okay, that makes sense
Oh,
then. See, we learned something new.
Newfoundland. You gotta, out of all the times you didn't skip over letters, it's on that one when you're supposed to.
Yeah, I'm in Old Funland. I'm more of an Old Funland kind of guy. Deb agrees with you. Oh, speaking of which, Deb speaks very highly of you. She was the one that
I
suggested that I ask you to come on.
I really like Deb.
Hmm.
The part where she says about the reclothing, I was talking to Mel actually, who has done a lot of research on I don't know what you would call that, like I don't know, it's not the opposite of victimology for the perpetrator, whatever that word is. That reclothing can often mean a sign of remorse, but usually when it's because I picture it when like a parent kills a child or somebody who cares about them and then they kind of like take care of them and keep the body safe afterwards. But the difference in this is usually in those cases the face is covered
Hmm.
and her face was not covered.
Right.
So I guess it could still be a remorse, just not in a personal way, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, well, I don't want to say too much. Necessary evil. Why people think it's odd Alan got tased when he smashed his tablet and acted up. Yeah, everybody knows how I feel about that. I don't care where they keep him. Move him. For the love of Pete. Put him wherever his attorneys want him to go. I don't care. Just get him to trial on time. There's got to be a reason why they're not moving him. And I don't think it's just to be a pain in the ass to him. It's for a reason. And again, and I think like this. They can't put him in any of those counties. Ruckus is from old Lost Land. Yeah, you're right. Oh, Fartland, more like it. But maybe they can't put them in those counties because there's people that are in that jail that could be
Yeah,
suspects.
can you imagine him in Carroll County? Like, that would be a shit show.
I never got a chance to go to the jails. I've been there. I've been to the crime scene um, during the day and at night. But
I just mean from the inmates with how that is such a small area.
it's a very
It's not like
small
in a big
jail. It's like
city.
30 people, I think, they can house.
Well, it's not like in a big city where the majority of the people don't know about the case. This is like it almost like happened to them, like the inmates in there, I would imagine,
Hmm.
because they're so close to it.
Yeah, I lived in a big county. We had like 1,200 inmates. It's crazy, isn't it?
I'm from a town about half the size population wise of Delphi.
Are you in Indiana? I'm not trying to
No, I'm
dox
in
you.
Oklahoma.
Okay. Oh, Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain.
I get that every time. Well, my boyfriend moved here from California and had never heard that. So I'm like, where? What kind of childhood did you have?
Only the king is Keegan. Seemed to excel in jail. Yeah, he did very well. He gained weight. But
That
Richard
is something
Allen's
I
also
wonder.
an alcoholic. So he wasn't
Isn't
looking too
Keegan
good.
in isn't Keegan in like a not solitary but a segregation of some sort?
I'm not sure where he's at in prison. First you go to a prison where you get classified and then you get sent to your final place
I
and
think
they
he's
can
in like
still
a pod for sex offenders.
how crazy is that? Can you
So,
imagine?
but that makes me wonder, like, why can't they put Richard Allen in a place like that where he's not in solitary? I'm a bleeding heart liberal. I have to admit it. I don't know the solution, but I don't really believe in solitary. But why can't they move him from solitary to a place like that where people won't have so much of a problem, but he'll not get killed?
Hmm. That's a good point, Mel. We'll never know until he fesses up to it. You know, it's a small town. Maybe he's just trying to cover up the fact that he did. Maybe because we still don't know if they were S8. We don't know that yet.
You know.
So maybe he was going to, and then decided not to. So that's why he was dressing them to make sure that everybody knew that that's not what happened.
And I kind of wonder, actually, I think Necessary Evil might be saying something about it. Make look like Abby was the target. Everybody talks about Libby being the target, but I don't know which way I really think, but I think it's possible Abby could be because she was treated better.
Hmm.
I don't know. It could go either way, I think.
Yeah, I've got other information that they weren't the targets, but it wasn't random either.
How is
Mark,
that
how are you,
possible?
sir? Got a $2 super chat from Mark. I appreciate it, my friend. Making it rain. It's like one of these, right? I should do that every time I hit that thing.
Mm. You one of those guns, dollar bill guns.
Yeah. uh, Killed child killers. Here we go. Devoted to Mariah. Accused child killers aren't popular in prison. Inmates don't care about the guise of innocence. No, they don't. When I worked at the state prison in Florida, it was the same prison that the death row was on, but I got tired of death row. I was bored with it, so I moved out to the compound. And I'm here to tell you, they don't know. Inmates don't know what the other inmates' charge is. So they're all murderers. They all lie. You can't even go find out unless he's a famous person and you recognize him or whatever. But just like YouTube, rumors would start and all that,
Hmm.
and somebody would get hurt.
Somebody would hear from their family member that just
Right.
go look this up and blah blah blah.
Exactly. Now, even me as a CO, I couldn't go to classification and say, "Hey, give me this guy's jacket. I want to know what he did." I had to have a very good reason for it, because COs would get corrupt and they tell other inmates information they shouldn't be. You know.
Yeah, I think
Hey,
they
Michael.
one of the problems they have is they don't pay or treat like their COs most places enough, and they don't treat them well enough. and they're, at least in my state, now they're even taking away like the benefits that made it even worth being one. So then they open them up to the risk of them doing stuff like that, like trafficking stuff in and out. But like, what do you expect when you're putting them in this position and paying them $15 an hour or whatever? I don't know
Mm.
what it is there. Ours is really bad.
Yeah, I was making working death row. This is back in 1990. I was making $19,000 a year. Let me read
That's
this
crazy.
comment. Yeah, I think I made like $2,000 too much to get on welfare. Michael, Ruckus Rocks claimed back in August you had this all figured out and you knew who was involved. Why still theorizing then? Can't you speak about it in general, specific, non-specific way? No disrespect. None taken, Michael. I'd rather people be upfront. Yes, there are more people involved, and I, I, I have figured it out. Um, it's not my place. It's not my place to say. I'm talking about Delphi tonight in a very general discussion. Theories are theories, but this is just a general discussion. I'm done with Delphi. Law enforcement has solved it. It's already solved.
So that means you can't elaborate anymore on what you said a minute ago about
Well,
they
no,
weren't the
because I would
targets,
have
but it
to.
wasn't random.
Yeah, I would have to say how I know that, and I'm just
I
not.
know,
And
but
I'm just not willing to do that.
it's a curious thing.
Yeah, but my announcement wasn't. Oh, hey, I'm going to drop all this information. I'm done with Delphi. When this stuff comes out like this, like filings and stuff like that, it's very interesting to talk about. And it's very interesting to think about. Well, why'd they charge him like that? Stuff like that. It's interesting to
But
talk about this
if he
stuff.
does take a plea and pleads guilty, I know that they have to do the little thing in front of the judge, but you don't always get all the details, do you? And afterwards, do you think we'll know everything, or do you think we'll just?
Well, you look at the Golden State Killer. He just took a plea deal and he didn't have to say anything. But all of his was pretty much out already. We already knew what he was doing. But BTK, Dennis Rader, he had to tell everything. And that was
Yeah,
creepy as hell. Did you ever see that?
no, but he's a creepy, creepy man.
Yeah, he stood up in court and went over everything, right down to him masturbating.
I don't know what I don't know what I think Indiana would do.
Well, that's
I
going to
should
be
find
part of
a
the deal.
case
They want, especially with, I mean, they call it bloodlust, but to me, it's just people want to know, and they have their right. It's in our Constitution. They have their right. Now,
they've created that environment.
yeah, but I'm not going to be an asshole. I'm not going to hide behind, well, because we need transparency to make sure nobody gets fucked over. No, I'm just a nosy prick, just like the rest of you people are. Don't give me this bullshit with, oh,
Yeah,
it's supposed to be transparency. No, you just nosy.
I could
Transparency
be
can
both.
come after the fact.
I'm very nosy and I want to know it now.
Yeah, agreed. I'm the same way. But I'll never say, oh, well, it's because, we're getting fucked over. It's, they have to be transparent because we have to checks and balances. Yeah, no, not so much.
And this may be insensitive to some people, but it's like the crime scene pictures. I want to see them. I know a lot of people say they don't want to see them, and that's fine, but judge me if you want. I want to see them.
Hmm. Well, there
I
was
don't
some,
think they should be out in the public. I think I should be able to see them, and maybe they'd not be in public, but obviously things don't work like that.
but then what do you do? Because I saw them. But then what do you do? I did a live showing what I found in those pictures. I found some things in those pictures
Yeah, I
that
saw that.
other people weren't even looking for.
Well, then, did you hear what Julie said about it?
No.
She said there were more. She said that there was like, she said they're like watermarks. And she said that she like measured them out and there's more than just one.
Oh, there may be. I only had that one.
Because to me, you said it was like 13 something you saw. To me, it looked like a B, like the word bagged kind of.
Hmm. Well, without getting too much into it, seeing the whole picture in its natural state, it's very light. You have to really look to see anything. And what I saw was vertical lines. That's what I mean. Horizontal lines. That's what caught my
Yeah.
attention. So I started darkening it up. There's also writing on the left shoulder, just above the shoulder on the arm, around the bicep area. But I'm not really good with pictures, but I wasn't gonna keep them and send them around to people and say, "Hey, what do you think this is?"
Yeah.
So I got the parts of those pictures that I wanted. They don't show any of the bodies or anything like that. There's nothing that you would even say it's a body, and deleted them. But I know where the blood was. I know where the smears were, and some of that between the 13 and what I think is OCT is there's some blood there. So it kind of it makes it difficult. But again, I'm not gonna talk about them and all that. I am sensitive to the families.
Yeah.
They don't want to
I mean,
hear
I
all
would
this
hate
shit.
for because and then not only to hear it, but then it gets to the point where like you can't even go on the internet because like God forbid you inadvertently pop up on something like that.
Hmm. Right. I mean, I was torn whether or not to do that video, but I knew that someone was going to put these photos out. It's going to happen. So many people have seen them now that it's ridiculous. But I wanted to show what value they had other than just the shock. They had value. And I
I
caught
know
a
some
bunch
people
of
have been
shit
critical. I
because
don't
I
think there's anything wrong with putting that out. The little parts that you did.
yeah, well, and I wasn't doing it for attention, and thank God I haven't gotten any from it. Um, People just took that information and did what they want, just like they'll do with tonight's podcast. They'll take information that we talked about and they can make their own decision. But at least it's there. They can go back and look. And now, just let me put this out there: that search on Richard Allen's house. They took him and his wife in. They were in custody, and at some point during that interview, they weren't in custody. They were being interviewed. They agreed to let them search the house, right? They gave consent because they were there all day. You know that, right? And then you look at the search warrant, it's not signed until after
Yeah.
6. Now, why is that? People start right away with, oh, that's corruption. See, that's bullshit. And they're so stupid they couldn't even think to back time it and all that. Well, I offer you this. What if Richard Allen took that picture? What if that 13 October is the date that they found that picture? And what if that's what they showed the judge to get that search warrant? I offer you that. I didn't put that number on there. I didn't ask for it. I just found it. It was just there.
That's something I was going to ask you actually. Is it normal, do you know, for because I know that it's normal, like in most scenes, they want you to take a picture of the scene before anybody goes in and touches anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be why there's no markers. But if there's leaves, like say there were leaves on the bodies when they were found, do they do it by layers? Like take a picture, remove the leaves, take another picture. Is that
Well,
normal?
something could be 10 feet away from you on a crime scene, and it could take you an hour to get to it. You can't just walk across this stuff. You might be disturbing evidence, especially an
Yeah.
outdoor crime scene like that one. Well, and here's another thing that, those two pictures were taken by two different pieces of equipment, two different cameras at two different times. They're not the same. It's not the same person with the same camera that took both of those pictures. They're different. The two that I saw. I heard that
I
I've
heard
heard up to 22, that there's 22 out there.
22 pictures?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Oh, I haven't heard that. I've only heard there's 4.
Yeah. But see, who knows? And I'm not going to look into that at
I
all.
heard that that the ones with the little cursor on them, that one reason
Hmm.
they look kind of weird is because they're a picture of a screen, and then maybe there was like one other one that was more clear, like a printed out picture, not a picture of a screen. So
Well,
do you
law
think?
enforcement, and this is another thing that bothers me now about. I don't care about the leak. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't care which attorneys represent him. I don't care which judge seats the trial. or which prosecutor prosecutes. I don't care about any of that. But with the leak, some of these pictures were definitely pictures of a computer screen. Some people swear by it. You can see the mouse cursor on there. Well, so then law enforcement doesn't take pictures of computer screens. They download the photo off of the computer and they print that out. So there will never be a picture of a mouse cursor unless it's evidence taken from somebody else's device. Like somebody went to another guy's house and took a picture of his screen outside of law enforcement. So what were those pictures? Where did they come from? They're definitely not something that Mr. Baldwin left a few pictures out on the table, and Mitch Westerman took pictures of those. No, law enforcement does not do pictures like that with curses on them and stuff like that, unless it was
I was
evidentiary.
I was under the impression that they used like I don't know if you call it a server, but where the evidence is, and I guess now that I'm saying this out loud, it might not make as much sense. So I've heard in other cases they use like almost like a server where all the evidence is saved to the same place. So both the prosecution and the defense access it from there, and then you also have a trail of like who's if you save it to your computer or whatever, there's a trail for that. And the reason I thought that is because in one of the filings, I think it was McClelland who said, you can just have one copy of things. So that's kind of how they would mitigate there being copies of things everywhere. So that's why I thought maybe there was a picture of a screen. But I definitely don't think that the Western, like, it wasn't a one time thing. That's crazy. He didn't just go in and snap a picture and that was it. He wasn't visiting for no reason, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree. But that's just our opinion. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Cut and dry. Yeah, see, Brian does not want the crime scene photos out there. So I can definitely see both sides. I
No,
didn't,
I don't want him in the public.
yeah, I didn't go looking for him. I didn't ask for him. They just came to me. But then once I seen him, I'm damn sure going to look at him for forensic value.
Hmm.
Try and stop me.
It's like I always kind of joke that I should be able to own automatic weapons, but I don't want other people to own them. It's like that. I want to be able to see the pictures, but I don't think they should be in the public.
Yeah. Michael, I'll give you a little something to chew on, brother. There's something on that list of items that was taken from Richard Allen's house during that search warrant. Um, it's an odd item that you wouldn't think would have any impact on this case, and it's on that list. Okay, that is what the defense is shitting their pants about. That one piece of evidence, not the bullet, not the gun, because a forensics expert can go in there and they can parade 20 of them in there until the judge gets tired of it, and they could probably put some doubt over that bullet. But this one piece of evidence, they cannot explain it away, and it puts Richard Allen on the crime scene.
Puts them at the actual crime scene
Well, you
where
got
they
to
were
keep in
found.
mind the crime scene is that whole area.
So can you say yes or no to that? But does it put him where they were found?
No,
I think I know what you're talking about.
well, it is by itself. You wouldn't say, oh, okay. But when you take that and the other pieces of evidence, yeah,
I
it
think the
is
thing you're
there.
talking about, if I'm correct, is also if you look at like the list of stuff they said they were looking for, it's the only thing that doesn't fall into one of those categories.
Well, a lot of that stuff is boilerplate. Like people are saying, oh, they're looking for digital items. There might have been, and I'm here to tell you, I think it was what's his analogy of a crime with CD.
Hmm.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I think he was the first one that I heard say, and they're looking for that stuff. We're talking back when Ron Logan's search warrant came out. That they were looking for a tripod. Maybe there was tripod marks on the ground, and that's recently resurfaced.
I
But
didn't
that's
realize he said that.
yeah, he said it way back in like March that I remember. Hey James, how are you, buddy? Um, But most of that stuff is boilerplate. I mean, we're looking for weapons. We're looking for edge weapons. We're looking for guns. We're looking for ammunition. We're looking for digital media. Da da da. You know what I mean? That's almost every
It's really
search warrant.
it's really crazy how many rumors there were in the very beginning that have, I guess, both that have turned out to be wrong and that have turned out to be correct.
Well, I know for a fact that this piece of evidence, they cannot explain it away and they want it tossed out. That's why they're going to this extreme. You have to really prove that Liggett lied to the judge. And you have to prove that that lie is the only reason that they got the search warrant. And that's never going to fly.
That's the part that, like, even if they proved that he lied, I don't think it wouldn't take the search warrant away, in my opinion.
Yeah. Dreamscape says, Ruckus question, do you feel better informed since viewing the photos? Um, I wouldn't say informed. They didn't confirm anything for me. It wasn't an aha moment, but it definitely puts a lot of things into play. Because, I mean, you can say what you want. If you go back and watch that video with me and Steve, that is an unspent round, folks. That's not it's not a piece of dirt. That is an unspent round. Um, and it's right where law
Where
enforcement said it was. If you said, a lot of people are saying, well, it was buried. If you're saying it was buried,
That's what
that
I was going to
implies
ask
it was,
about.
yeah, that implies that it was planted. So you want me to believe that somebody went there, went between the girls, dug a hole, and buried a bullet there, and law enforcement couldn't tell that a fresh hole was dug there. You
Well,
know?
I think what it is, because they said it was buried in the defense, it says buried in leaves and dirt, buried under leaves and dirt.
Hmm.
I think it fell and it just, you know how something heavy will just go straight through dead leaves. It just went through the leaves and hit the ground, and there's that, dirt debris within leaves, and I think that's how it was buried, not like in the ground.
Well, if you believe that picture that I saw, and
That's true.
I mean that thing wants to stand by itself, and it's not organic. I wish there was another picture, but yeah, HCC, there is so much bullshit going around, but that's going to happen, and you can't get upset with people. Um, this is what they like to do. They like to talk about things. I don't think they so much want to fight about it, but they do want to argue. That's interesting. I love that name. Have you seen anything that caught your eye yet, Ivy? Because somebody's has that list out and they're just naming everything off the list. I'm not going to spill the beans,
Oh, I think I know what it is.
but
I think it's been listed.
I'm here to tell you that if I can find this stuff out, you guys can find this stuff out. I just happen
I
to
think it's
have
in the
experience and
comments
know
right
where
now.
to get this information from and where to find it and how to deduce it.
I know you're not going to get into details of this. I think that the thing that you're talking about, this is going to be super vague, it's going to annoy people. I think the thing you're talking about and the story that goes with it, doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, they're not really talking about it. Nobody is, including the defense. They don't want to talk about that shit. It's just like when they put out that 136-page memorandum. What's the low hanging fruit? The Kleins, Ron Logan. You had no mention of them, none whatsoever. Um, so why do they really believe this Odinist stuff happened? You know,
No. There's nothing that
it's hard to
connects
say.
it to Odin.
It's hard
I
to.
mean, some
Well,
people do. Some
some
people
people
really
would
believe them.
disagree.
No, if you take those aren't runes are like letters. They're definite shapes. Those do not make runes. They just don't. Like that's almost like as close to a um, black and white type thing as you can get without being black and white. And once you remove that from, if you look at it from like the beginning of the crime and investigating the crime scene, the only thing that connects Odinism at that point is Holder being the father of Abby's boyfriend, but at the same time, you could say the same thing about any Christian person related to any of the
Hmm.
girls. And that's
Hmm.
all that's there at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Lala, yes. There's evidence can be found and turned in even during the trial, as long as it gets presented to the defense as well, or to the prosecution, depending on who found it. But I've spoken to HCC about this, and he is really smart. He missed his calling, but
He is super smart.
yeah, he's smart. He's a smart guy. But we talked about it a little bit, and I'm here to tell you, I just gave him enough, and he figured it out himself pretty much. So, and I'm a dumb fuck. I mean, I'm an old senile guy, and if I can figure that shit out, you guys can too. Just
So when you
stop.
say you figured this out, have you had like confirmation from a like
No,
primary
law
source of
enforcement.
case?
Yeah, law enforcement has not confirmed any of it, but they don't have to.
Yeah.
If you tell me what law enforcement is doing, I'll tell you why they're doing it. That's my experience. So I understand what's going on.
Say that
It's not
again.
hard for
I
me
was
to
reading the
see.
chat. You said that if you ask what's going on, they'll tell you why they're doing it.
No, if you tell me what law enforcement is doing,
Okay, I
I'll
see what
tell
you're
you
saying now.
why. I know why they're doing it. A lot of people think, why the fuck are they doing that? And I'm like, yeah, you
Well,
don't
what about the
know
sticks?
the
What about
what?
the sticks then? What about the sticks and taking them in? If we believe that they didn't take them in for evidence
They did take them in for evidence. It's
immediately,
that's another rumor. Yes, could you imagine?
I don't know. That's
You
what
you
I
would have
was
to be
thinking.
the
Like that's crazy.
that little piece of woods would have to be filled with every idiot in that state of Indiana for not one person to say, and they did take them, by the way, they did take them, to say that, hey, this was touching the bodies, but we're not going to take it. And
Yeah,
here's
you don't
another
need.
thing, were they covered with leaves or not? Erskine said yes. He found them. He took pictures. He said yes, there was leaves on them. There wasn't leaves on either one of those in either one of those pictures.
He said yes, but there were some things he got wrong. Plus, he was finding his niece. Like that's kind of more in my wheelhouse a little bit. Like trauma does weird things to people,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have no idea how he dealt with it. None whatsoever.
and you don't know how like the memory of it. I mean, we're talking about eyewitnesses,
Right.
so
And yeah, we're getting
yeah.
right back to that stuff. Right. So we have to find somebody else that said yes, there was leaves on them, right?
And that it didn't come. Here's the most important part: find somebody else, and then make sure that their information didn't come from the original source. I see that
Correct.
all the time. That drives me
Correct.
crazy.
That happens a lot. It happens a lot. But it just is what it is. That's human nature. But if there was leaves on them when they were found, the pictures I saw, there was no leaves on them.
So you think that there's a chance that those pictures were taken by the killer? It sounds like.
Yeah, we figured that out, Turbo. I've got my girl Ivy Rose. She's on that stuff. She's on it like Blue Bonnet. She's got another response that she has to give.
Are you convinced that they were taken by the killer, or are you saying it's a possibility?
I am convinced that at least Libby's was. At least. Now, if that turns out, which I'm sure it will, I'm as confident as I'm ever going to be with this case. And if that turns out to be true, well, then that's not me being smart. That's me. Tell me what law enforcement is doing, and I'll tell you why, and able to put shit together.
See, okay, so now that you say that, let me see if you can answer this question. I just had this thought last night, I think. From what I've heard, there's four pictures. One of them is Libby, and one of like, you can see all of Libby. One you can see all of Abby. One of like the top of Abby's head, like you can just see her like her head and her face.
Mm-hmm.
And then her like her legs. So that means 3 out of the 4 are Abby. If hypothetically, or I guess the whatever you want to call it, if the defense were the ones who leaked that, why leak 3 of Abby and 1 of Libby?
No idea. But from what I understand, there's more.
That's
From from
crazy.
from what I
I haven't heard
understand.
more than 4 yet.
Now
22? That's like
I'm here to tell you, just the crime scene before they even started processing it, they probably took 100 pictures before anybody stepped in there and started processing it. Those pictures, how long does it take to take a picture? Like a hundredth of a second, right, for that
mhm.
shutter? So you're talking, they were out there for at least 12 hours. So we're talking about a hundredth of a second in time on that crime scene. So how many thousands of times did they do that? And I'm just, I've seen enough crime scene photos to know which ones are legit and which ones aren't. And if they are legit, now I talked to Mr. Steve, who was a crime scene technician. He was actually the boss. He's like, yeah, I've seen worse. I've seen some horrible crime scene photos taken by
Yeah.
forensic technicians. So I must have been fortunate to have good CSI people. Hoosier has something up here, and I wanted to address it. Oh, didn't the courts have every opportunity not to let the memorandum out to the public? Yes and no. The court does not run the CCS. The clerks do. So when they filed it, they didn't ask for it to be confidential, so they just filed it.
Yeah, I think it's the attorneys that have to, like, when they go to file it electronically, they have to choose whether
Mm-hmm.
it's public or sealed or confidential. And then if they do the confidential, they're supposed to put in like another paper with it saying why, I think.
Hmm. I don't see how the defense leaded to anything when the courts allowed it. Yeah, I agree. I agree
Oh, I think
100%.
I mean
Yeah,
the
from
when I
the
say
memo,
leaked, I
he's
mean
talking
the
about the.
photos.
Yeah, he's
The
talking
memo
about
is
the
a
memo.
filing. Like you can't leak. I don't believe the memo was a leak. I disagree with people about that.
Hmm. Well, and see, that's the thing. And I know I sound like an asshole, but I don't care who leaked what. That has zero impact on the facts, on the evidence. And again, I'm pro law
And at this
enforcement.
point, it's over.
Yeah, they've already done it. To me, it's over. They've already done it. They've already done their work. They turned it in. Now it's the prosecution's job to get a guilty verdict. So that's why I don't care about any of this. And I don't mean this literally, but I don't care about Richard Allen. I don't care about that portion of this case. It's still an active case. The way they charge them, from what I've seen, from what's been going on, and what law enforcement has been doing, and what they're not doing, um, there's more coming down the pike.
That's a question I have. How would you know if it was an not an active case anymore?
They wouldn't be investigating it. They would not be actively investigating it. Any new evidence that comes in does not have to necessarily come from law enforcement. It seldom does. It comes from the attorneys and their group of investigators.
So there's no way to really know unless you know whether they're investigating or not. There's no other like signs you can look for.
Well, they are actively investigating. They still are.
I was just curious, like in general, if there was any way to figure out. But I guess
Once they turn the case over, that's it. Now, law enforcement is still very active in this case. Would you agree?
probably. I don't really know either way, but I would assume
Yeah. Now,
based
Hoosier,
on what
when
Miss
it comes
Gibson
to
said.
that court stuff, now it says right in that filing from today that the judge, the court, is not responsible for all that. The clerk is. So there should be checks and balances. Yes, I agree with you. But it appears that if the attorney turns it in, some things shouldn't be have to be checked. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
It's also it's a little dumb to me that and I know it's her argument and her attorney wrote it, but like Gull is going to argue that, oh well, I'm not in charge of that, but she was the one that told the clerk to take it off. Like you
Hmm.
may not necessarily like technically be in charge, but you're the one that said take it off.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? And,
Did
and
you
it's
know?
it's all posturing. They're playing games.
Did you know that in like 20, not that long ago, I want to say it was the beginning of this year, Delphi, Carroll County, had a clerk who, I think it was Hawkins, Judge Hawkins, Troy, I think is his name. I want to say it was him, told his clerk to do this. I think it was about bail. And she's like, no, that law changed and that's against the law now. And he's like, well, I'm ordering you to do it. And she's like, no, I'm not doing it. And it turned into this big thing. And then she asked Carroll County to pay for her legal fees about it. And I don't know if they did or not, but that just happened like less than a year ago, I think, or the ending of it did. So I find
Mm.
that kind of interesting with everything going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think we beat this horse as far as we can beat it. If this if another filing comes down, do you want to come back on and we'll talk about that? Because I've
Sure.
enjoyed this. I like talking with you. I'm just done with this case, but filings and stuff like that, I would love to talk to you about that stuff.
I
It's
mean,
been,
those filings are killing. I have productivity problems in the first place. I can't be dealing with these filings every day. I wish they'd stop or do it all in one day of the
mm.
week. It was like every day for a while.
No,
But yeah,
Michael, I
the
agree with you
27th.
100%.
Um, yeah.
And that's not me speculating or theorizing. Not many people. Michael's the first one in a while that has even mentioned that storm video that I put out. I put that out on August 30th. I knew this shit was coming. This whole mess, the leak, I knew it was coming. Can't tell you how, but I knew it. And it came true. And that's not me. I'm not bragging. I was just letting people know, listen, some shit's coming. So be ready
Mm-hmm.
for it. It's not one of
Well,
these you heard it here first. I don't want to be first. I want to be right. But there was
there may
no.
be another one, but there should be a filing on the 27th, which is the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So whenever that comes out, she may do it before then. That's her deadline. She may do it before then.
I bet she does it the same day, like
Yeah.
afternoon of that day.
Yeah. Right at the end of the day, probably. But when that comes out, I would love to have you back on and we can talk some more. We don't have to talk specifically about that for the whole show, but we can start off with that and take it from there. You're very easy to talk to.
Well, I definitely don't have problems talking.
That's a good thing. Some people do. Some people they get anxiety about talking. I've never had that problem.
No, I almost forget that like there's people listening to us.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That means that you have a good host. You're comfortable. Not necessarily a good host in directing how things go, but you're comfortable, and that's the main thing is to be comfortable.
Yeah, I'm not organized enough to do that part of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not either. That's why you got to pick the right guest. But all right,
Well, yeah, well, I
everybody.
had a good time.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming and for people who donated. That was mighty nicey. I really appreciate that. Every bit helps. Steve and I are going to be going back out on the road again, and I really don't like taking money out of my house to go do this stuff. I don't want to get paid for it, but I don't want to spend my money either. But doing a show tomorrow with Alex Voorhees. We're going to start on a case about Mr. Curtis Huff. This guy lives down here in Florida. He's walking around the streets, and we need to put him on death row. So tune in tomorrow and check that out. Alex is awesome anyways, but this is some really, really interesting material. So stay tuned for that, and that's close to my proximity. You guys all know that I will go knock and talk. I'll go knock on that son of a bitch's door, and we'll all have some fun with him. But until then, thank you very much, Ivy. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I will talk to you again soon. And as soon as something else comes out, we'll set something up and we'll come back on.
Okay. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me on. Talk to you
Yes.
guys later.
Thanks for coming. And for the rest of you guys out there, do me a huge favor. Don't take any wooden nickels. My name is Ruckus Thanks for hanging out. Please like, subscribe, and share. I'm 10-7.